The Supreme Court has dealt a significant blow to the Trump administration, blocking the president from deploying the National Guard to Chicago. In the 6-3 ruling, the court's 3 liberal justices were joined by Chief Justice John Roberts, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And today's decision could jeopardize Guard deployments in other cities. With us now, CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Holding is a former federal prosecutor. Walk us through the reasoning here from the Supreme Court, which I have to say is truly interesting.
It really is. It's an unusual decision and a major setback for the Trump administration, not just in Chicago, but more broadly. The law that Donald Trump used to deploy the National Guard in the first place says that the president can call out the National Guard if he is unable with regular forces, we're going to come back to that, okay, regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. Now, the Trump administration argued that means if he's unable with regular cops, with FBI, DEA, ICE to enforce the laws, then you can call in the National Guard. What the Supreme Court said is, no. That phrase, regular forces, that means the regular military, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and only those very narrow areas where the military is even allowed to come in and execute the laws in the first place. So basically, the Supreme Court has put the bar very high to deploy the National Guard in the future and has limited it to an almost minuscule slice of all conduct on the streets. It's going to make it very difficult for the president to justify the National Guard in Portland, New York, anywhere else.
Explain why this mattered in Chicago, but didn't play in Los Angeles or in Portland, Oregon, where the Guard was also deployed.
So I think you and I discussed Los Angeles and D.C. were different. D.C. was different. Trump was allowed generally to deploy there because the president is in charge of the D.C. National Guard, okay? Put that to the side. L.A. was different, Los Angeles, because there were protests that at times turned violent happening there. The rationale in Chicago is much more generalized. Just, well, crime rates are high and it's very dangerous. And the Supreme Court has said that's not enough for this specific statute.
Yeah, and again, for it to be allowed in cities like Chicago in these circumstances, it would have to get past posse comitatus, right?
Right.
Yes. Which means what?
You with your Latin phrases, which means that the military traditionally cannot conduct regular law enforcement activities. They can't make traffic stops. They can't do searches. They can really only provide a very basic security function. So it's very, very narrow. So this decision really leaves very limited room for Trump to deploy the National Guard elsewhere. They can try to argue circumstances are different, but if the argument's just going to be, well, it's dangerous, that's not going to cut it.
Where they're not invited is also important, too.
Yes. Well, it's a big difference if the governor requests aid.
Right.
That changes the whole legal calculus. Interesting coalition here, right? We're so used to these 6-3 decisions, 6 conservatives versus 3 liberals. Here you had Chief Justice Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Kavanaugh joining with the liberals, leaving the 3 conservatives complaining about this. This was an emergency docket case, meaning there was not full briefing, there was no oral argument, and there's been criticism of the emergency docket. The way this plays is whoever loses hates the emergency docket.
All right, again, very interesting reasoning, could have a vast impact depending on where else the president wanted to deploy the Guard in the next coming months. Ellie, great to see you. Have a great holiday.
All right.